Joining us this morning is Mr. Gary Svetz. Morning, Gary. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Luke.
Good to see
Glad
you.
to be back. Glad you're back from Florida. I mean, that's
Well,
awesome.
is it?
Yeah, no.
When I get back, it's supposed to be, 70, 80 degrees, but
I'm sorry we couldn't provide that. It's coming. It's going to be here, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, Gary, let's catch up. You got some things coming up, but before we get to that, how would you describe the environment we're in now compared to a year ago and 2 years ago?
Whoa. It's different, but not different. It's challenging still in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
Obviously, the virus, the safety part of it is starting to subside some. But at the same time, the challenges for small business are still there. In most businesses, as you know, anything from supply chains to inflation to, a lot of barriers still connecting with customers. And of course, our energy costs are going up that impact, most people don't realize that, but utilities going up hurts everybody.
Yeah.
Not just at the gas pump, but electric for businesses and get natural gas for businesses and those things. So the cost of doing business is going up, and not everybody can pay that price. And that's part of it. Pricing is very critical.
Well, and then I think the other part of that is when you go to the stores and you're going, why is this item, why is that price going up? And again, the fuel for these trucks to bring the product to the store, and there's all sorts of factors involved there.
Yeah, so pricing is very volatile right now. The costs are very volatile. Most of our business owners are trying to adjust prices as quick as possible, just to secure a margin of some kind. And so that's been consuming a lot of their time sourcing. And of course, we all know about staffing. So it's a little different environment, but similar challenges. And I guess as we talk about our programs, Luke, the exciting part about it is people are still willing to take a risk and want to pursue entrepreneurial ownership. And so that's exciting.
How much of that do you think stems from just how much has changed in the workplace over the last 2 years, working from home or deciding, being with the family has been a little more important, or I like having that extra time. Maybe I should go into business. Yeah, it's going to be stressful or a challenge, but I'll have the ability to kind of set my schedule.
Yeah, I think that's created a whole new playing field for entrepreneurs. People are getting used to working remote, and they know they can do quite a bit from a remote location, people moving around our country and everything else. And they're looking at the personal side of life of what they want to accomplish personally with their family, on their own, setting goals for themselves. And then we do a lot of that in our programs, personal and professional. And I think people are just taking two steps back and saying, what do I really want to do? So COVID has brought that on as far as a decision point in people's lifestyles.
Take the flip side of that. Have you talked to anybody who owns a business who said, yeah, you know what, it's great that somebody can work from home, but I do want them back at the office. I want to be able to see them, or be able, if I need something, not to call them, I can go right into their office and ask for it.
Yeah, and that's a challenge because some people would rather be in an office where there's some social connections, and others are gotten used to I feel more comfortable here. So employers have to be very careful how they require that to come back to the office, and they may lose an employee. But at the same time, it's a balancing act. And I think employees have more leverage now. I mean, not to be used, but just to negotiate and to communicate to their employer about what their work style expectations are. And I know some employers don't want that conversation and rather retire. But at the same time, if they want employees, I think it's a balancing act. I think it's requires more communication with employees and employers, which is good. And so the expectations might change. And a lot of employers are understanding that. So the work week could look a little differently, how hours are monitored and how work gets done. So I think anybody who wants to be a little progressive has to think a little differently.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I just saw a story I don't know, yesterday or the day before that talked about if there was ever a time to implement a 4-day work week, I think we're past that window.
Yeah. I mean, I think the more flexibility you provide and can provide, understanding business still has to get done. I think how we structure it is changing and probably should change. And so it's just a matter of how can we do business effectively with more flexibility for people. And that's just a lot of communication and a lot of different management styles that need to be incorporated. So
when you hear the president say, we have record numbers of people going, back to work, what's the reality here in our area? It still seems like there's a lot of businesses looking for employees.
Oh, there are just not enough people and sometimes they can't get back to work. I mean, childcare is big. And our childcare system is under a lot of pressure, not in numbers, and can you find staff to do childcare anymore because it's a lower paying job, but it's a critical, important job because it frees up people to go back to work. So a lot of decisions had to be made by families of what am I going to do? What are my priorities? And for one member of that family, it may not be going back to work or doing a different style work where that remote option or their own business may be a better option for them.
So you've got a great program, Small Business Jumpstart, and this, again, is for somebody maybe starting a business. This might be for somebody who's been in business for forever, and they just need, maybe updated on some things or just need that outside voice to help guide them through all this stuff because there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of things that are new to employees or employers.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the program.
So basically, I mean, the program started back in 2004, but the idea was to have an affordable and accessible program, especially in our rural challenged areas, and provide great resources to get businesses up and running or to be sustainable and stay in business. And even during this COVID, we've had special sessions or additional resources for anything from grants to other aid to try to get people to stay in business and try to maybe reinvent themselves. So the good thing is I've seen a lot of businesses actually grow during COVID and stay. They've either sold a business and someone bought them and had a lot of energy and redirected the business so it stayed and employees stayed. So there's been a lot of volatility and change, but a lot of that change hasn't been all bad. We've seen a lot of downtown. I work with a lot of downtown businesses, and they've looked at what they do and how they do it, and it's been a good learning curve, a forced learning curve.
Yeah.
But accelerated those changes in a business that may not even consider some of those things maybe 5 years down the road. It now hit them in the face and say, we need to change.
So you're doing multiple versions of this, Crawford and Venango?
Crawford, Venango, and we have a program in Corry in the Erie County area that started up. We're in our third year, which I think we have over 20 people that have gone through the program.
Wow, that's great.
So it's busy. Our Venango County program is full. We have a waiting list. So we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurial activity. We have some room in Meadville and some availability in the Corry programs now. I'm running out of evenings, Luke, and I'm trying to, pace myself. So, but it's exciting, and there's a lot of personal satisfaction to see people develop their, dreams, goals, and continue in business.
So this is kicking off here in just a couple weeks?
Yeah. So our Meadville program is March 15th. The Venango is March 10th. And then the Corry program starts March 28th. So right now, I will reach out to the waiting list people that sign on with Ronnie Beath at the city of Franklin and try to work with them until somewhere can hold or come into the fall program, which is available. So we're actually trying to secure fall program participants, help them out. And then I usually touch base with them if I can to help them get through wherever they are in their phase. So we will still coach and communicate with those folks.
Do shows like Shark Tank get people excited to maybe jump into a business where they think, well, I've had an idea that I've sort of kept with me, not realizing how much work goes into that before that's being shown?
I mean, those shows are good. I mean, they gave some insight to businesses. Some shows are staged a little,
Oh,
but
sure.
they're still good questions, and there's still examples of someone trying to figure out how to connect the dots in business and what it takes to do it, and how they should look at their finances and sales and profitability and investments, all those things. So it's a good education. So there's some practical side to that. There's a lot of success stories from some of those shows, which is great because that shows that there is a way from starting small to growing your business with the right advice and resources. So yeah, I think that's instigated some of the entrepreneurial thinking. Yes.
We don't have those guys sitting here handing out money. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to jump into business because I'm told that there's grants for that and I can get money easily. Well, it doesn't work that way either.
Yeah. Now, during COVID, I mean,
well, yeah,
there was a lot of money going on. I mean, in a different ways. We talked about that. There is still some grants going on, and there's a variety of foundations that are still pumping money into small businesses. We do a lot of veteran-owned businesses. So in the Meadville and Venango programs, it's no charge to them. Thank you for your service. We're going to help you and do whatever we can for you. So we have over 35 veteran-owned businesses that have gone through various programs. So there's minority-owned, there's women-owned, and then some, general categories. So what COVID did is put a spotlight on small business and what it really contributes to a community. And so organically grown businesses, which are people that have a vested interest in the community, growing a business and contributing to the community is where you should put all your money. So economic development people sometimes might disagree slightly with that because they always like to pull people in, companies in. But the investment in a small business that is locally owned is critical. And I think that's where all our resources should go right now.
Yeah, as you said, the last couple of years, really an eye-opening experience to kind of just see how important those businesses are, and when somebody does go out, how impactful that is to a community.
Yeah, and then we're seeing companies that have been locally owned be bought out.
Yes,
and sometimes a corporate doesn't have the same vested interest. A national corporation may not have the same vested interest as that owner did. And so even though they maintain employment, which is good, it can be, they're maybe not as much a part of the community, which that's a piece that gets lost. And so we're seeing that as well. And owners want to get out of the business, and that's their way to exit. We also work with a lot of businesses for succession plans for the next generation. So there's a lot of businesses have commitment in the community and want to see their family maintain that business through their kids. So that's a challenge, but at the same time, that's great, multi-generational.
Absolutely. You're watching The Morning Drill on Stream Television and on Armstrong's Neighborhood Channel and listening to it on the Allegheny News Talk Sports Network. Gary Svetz joining us here this morning. Do you still have maybe an owner of a business, or maybe the employees come to you and say, Gary, I'm thinking about selling my business, or we found out that our owner is looking to sell, the employees want to come together and buy it, or is that kind of going by the wayside?
Well, what we see a lot of different situations. We see, lead employees or pick up the business and they make a deal, an owner financing deal with the owner. They may get some institutional financing to match it up, but they'll get some owner financing because that owner wants to keep the business alive and they want to have somebody that they trust and somebody who's a long-term relationship run that business and they know the business. So they take pride in that and they want to maintain that. So I do see employees buying businesses. Sometimes it's a group, sometimes it's a single employee. So yes, that is going on all the time. And most owners rather sell to someone that's been with them for a long time or knows the business and they want to carry on, even though maybe they don't have kids that will carry on. They have some trusted employees that are very interested in doing it. And they've been in the business some 15, 20 years, and they know the business. So it's been a good apprenticeship in a way to take the business over, because they're there, and
Yeah.
they've learned, and they have a real interest in keeping it going.
So your classes, Gary, do you have to have a business, or do you have to have started the process? Or if you're somebody thinking, boy, in the next year or two, this is something I think I'd like to pursue, but I'm just trying to get information.
Yeah. So we have a variety of people. We have people that just want to be educated and learn. So if an opportunity comes up, they're ready, or they feel more comfortable. We have people that are, high energy, they're ready to go, and they just need a lot of different resources to make it work, and they don't want to make too many mistakes. Some are in business, and they know they have some blind spots in some of their knowledge, and they need some help in certain areas. But they run a successful business in general. So we have a mix of seasoned and people that are just thinking about it. They've been an employee. They've only seen one part of a business. As far as education goes, we get a variety of people that are just practical. They are technically savvy in some ways, but they don't understand marketing and sales. The degree part, I've had people with PhDs and masters, and I've had people with bachelors, and I have people with no degree. Sometimes the no degree is really helpful because they're open and learning. So that I've had people with business management degrees 4-year come up to me after about 4 years and a year or two after and said, I learned more in 9 weeks than I did in 4 years.
Yeah.
Because we're just practical. We want people to learn at their pace as fast as possible, but at the same time, make them feel comfortable in casual environment. All questions are good, and we want them to take away from the program as much as possible. So we really don't care. We want people to come in and just learn, work together. We develop a supportive chemistry within the group, so everybody's kind of working together, helping each other out. And then our alumni are very helpful, because if they know they've taken the program, they'll reach out or be very approachable for advice or mentorship. So we try to develop that relationship as soon as possible.
It's interesting you say that. I remember doing some work for Ben Franklin Technologies, and Roy Campbell and I would have these conversations where, they're working with a company, and the guy, he's been working in a factory for 20 some years, came up with this idea because he thought it was an easier way to do the job he was doing. Doesn't really have the business knowledge, but has this great idea, but doesn't know how to take it forward from there.
Yeah. And so a lot of those things can gel into a business. And, sometimes people have to make a decision, like between a hobby and a business. And some people decide, well, I don't want to do that much work for a business. I just want to do this on the side, which is fine. They understand it better. And then, hey, I can make this work. And so we try to develop that confidence in leadership skills as well as the business knowledge skills. And so it takes both.
Do you get a lot of questions in that regard? Somebody saying, boy, I'm still trying to manage my current job. I'm still trying to grow this business. That's a smooth line, right? That I can just cross immediately and be good.
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of barriers to making that transition. It depends on their financial status and where they're at, and their confidence in themselves. But, that is probably one of the biggest decisions a lot of our entrepreneurs make is, when do I go from employment where I'm used to a check every week or every 2 weeks, and now I have to kind of really make this work to support myself or my family or whatever. And so that's a tougher decision, but we always talk about phase in. How can you phase in so it's not just a automatic, switch over? Because most are not. Some have taken, a couple of years where they've called me up and said, Gary, I'm finally out of my job and I'm into my own business, and I'm it's great.
Wow.
I have challenges, but they're on me.
Yep.
I'm making my decisions. I feel good about that. So it's different for everyone, and really depends on where they are in their idea, how ready they feel, and of course, healthcare comes up.
Yep.
How do you afford healthcare, which you've relied on from an employer, and develop your own? So different associations. So we work with them on that to try to reduce those costs and try to make it not seamless, because it's still a challenge, but to make them feel confident and give them all the tools to make that transition.
Well, Gary, real quick, how can folks sign up for your class?
Well, the Venango, you can still sign up. Ronnie Beath, rbeath at franklinpa.gov. The Meadville Chamber of Commerce, Megan Waters. So M Waters at meadvillechamber.com. And then at the in Corry, the Corry Higher Education, Brody Howard, CorryHIED.org. And you can get a hold of them and register as well. So we're really looking forward to a really successful season. It's going to be busy, but that's good. And I'm glad to see that people are still interested in developing their own businesses or sustainable on their business ventures. So it's going to be exciting, but it is challenging out there, and there's a lot of things to consider.
Gary, thanks for all you do. Let's catch up in a month or so.
I appreciate that. When you're not in Florida, let me know.
We'll
Luke,
do.
hey, enjoy your weekend.
Thanks.
Take care.
You too. Thanks, Gary. It's Gary Svetz joining us here this morning.